I have the most extraordinary partner in life.
My wife, Nicole Mary, is here tonight. I love you, baby girl.
When a musician falls in love with a woman, he doesn't write letters. He writes songs. And for 19 years, Keith Urban let Nicole Kidman live inside every melody, every breath, every lyric, as if his songs were pages of a sonic diary. But then, the songs that once sounded like vows began to return with different words. The Fighter, once their anthem of love, now echoes not as a promise, but as a farewell. The love he once sang to protect ultimately ended with 3 cold words on paper: irreconcilable differences. Yet if divorce papers mark the end of a marriage, then music is what remains of a heart that never truly went cold. Every song, Once in a Lifetime, Thank You, The Fighter, and Gemini, is a fragment of a genuine love, written when they still believed they would last forever. And now those very songs continue to tell the part of their story that no legal document ever could. In today's video, we'll uncover what the public has never truly heard. The songs Keith Urban wrote for Nicole Kidman, every verse, every line, like real-life love confessions. How each one reflected a phase of their marriage, from love to rebirth to quiet fracture. And why? When love ended, music became the only thing that still kept them alive in each other's memory. Because sometimes love doesn't need to be spoken. It only needs to be heard again, to be remembered. He once said, "Nicole Kidman is my muse. She didn't just help me get sober, she helped me find myself again." For Keith Urban, love didn't begin with a confession. It began with a melody. In 2006, when they were newly engaged, Nicole Kidman still carried the fear of marriage after the emotional wreckage of her split with Tom Cruise. Meanwhile, Keith, caught between withdrawal cravings and endless nights of struggle, could only use music to say what he didn't dare to speak aloud. That's when Once in a Lifetime was born. Not a loud or flashy love song, but a gentle reassurance. You don't have to be afraid. This time everything will be all right. He later shared, "Nicole was really worried. I wrote that song to tell her everything would be okay." It wasn't just the first song he wrote for her. It was the first song he wrote after realizing that love could save a man. Then came Got It Right This Time, the celebration. A song he admitted was a thank you for finally getting it right. After years of mistakes, Keith felt forgiven, not by God, but by a woman who believed in him when the rest of the world had turned away. In 2009, through his album Defying Gravity, he closed that chapter of happiness with Thank You, a heartfelt tribute to the wife who had pulled him out of addiction's abyss. For every time I couldn't find my faith, you made it real again. Nicole Kidman reportedly cried the first time she heard him sing it. And Keith simply said one short sentence: "She's the reason I wake up every morning and dare to live another day." During those years, Keith Urban's music was more than art. It was a form of healing, a quiet miracle shared between 2 wounded souls. Every song he wrote for Nicole Kidman was his way of saying thank you, not because she loved him, but because she taught him how to love himself. She once said, "I'd never been loved that way before." And think about it. If those lyrics, those tender promises had been written for you, wouldn't you have melted too? After nearly a decade together, their love was no longer a series of musical letters. It had become a private language only the 2 of them could understand. Keith Urban said, "The Fighter" was born from a simple, everyday moment, one that touched both Nicole's heart and the hearts of listeners around the world. One day, I saw Nicole looking tired. She didn't say anything, just quiet, And when things got hard, I knew I couldn't explain, couldn't reason. I just needed to hold her tighter. From that moment, The Fighter was created, not as a commercial hit, but as a vow from a man who had once lost everything and now could only love through protection. He described it this way: "It's a song about the desire to heal and protect the one you love." I wrote it to say, no matter how much the world hurts you, I'll always be the one shielding you. But behind that story was a truth that only surfaced later. The Fighter was inspired by those early days when Keith and Nicole had just found each other, but still didn't know if they could fully trust in love again. At the time, he had just emerged from addiction, and she was still cautious after a painful divorce. In a later interview, Keith shared, "It was written really quickly because I was just thinking about Nicole and me, about the early part of our relationship, the things we said to each other, and all of that ended up in the song." The idea struck him unexpectedly while he was driving to the studio in London. The chorus came to him so vividly that by the time he arrived, all he had to do was pick up his guitar and play. "I walked into the studio, played the chords, and Busby, my producer, built the track so fast. We almost finished the song in one session. It might be the fastest song I've written in years." At first, Busby sang the female part for Keith to keep a demo version before Carrie Underwood recorded the final vocals in a rushed session in St. Louis. "I still have the demo where Busby sang Carrie's part," Keith recalled. "I listened to it over and over for a long time before hearing her incredible voice on the final track." Set against a driving country pop rhythm, The Fighter unfolds as a question-answer dialogue between two lovers. What if I fall? I won't let you fall. What if I cry? I'll never make you cry. What if I lose it all? I'll never let you lose it all. Those call and response lines sounded like a ritual, a renewal of wedding vows. And when Nicole appeared with him in that car lip-sync video, her radiant smile and his tender glance made the whole world feel they were witnessing something sacred. That brief, phone-filmed moment spread across social media in 2016, gathering tens of millions of views. People didn't just see a famous couple. They saw a rare harmony between love and music. Nicole laughed. Keith looked over, his eyes warm as if saying, "I once hurt you, but this time, I'll be the one standing between you and every pain." The Fighter became the love song that defined the brightest era of their marriage, when Keith had fully risen from his past, and Nicole had finally found a man strong enough to trust. No new rings, no formal vows. That song itself was their second wedding promise, written in melody and preserved forever in the memory of millions. For them, it wasn't just music. It was their way of saying, "We're still here, and we're still fighting. Together." And indeed, when The Fighter went triple platinum in the US, quadruple platinum in Australia, and entered Billboard's Top 40, Keith said a single line that brought tears to his fans' eyes. "I didn't write this song to be a hit. I wrote it to hold on to the one thing in life I'm most afraid to lose. Her." After The Fighter, many believed their marriage had become immortal, as if after the storm, there could only be sunrise. But in Keith's music, that sunlight began to soften. The lyrics no longer burst like fireworks. They quieted, hesitated, as if from a man who now thought more than he spoke. In 2018, Graffiti U opened with a fiery declaration titled Gemini. It was one of the boldest and most personal love songs Keith Urban had ever written, a track that almost tore down every private boundary between the artist and the woman he loved. In it, he portrayed Nicole with raw, unapologetic desire. She's a maniac in the bed, but a brainiac in her head. Such lyrics were rare in country music, a genre known for its subtlety, its metaphors, It's restraint when it comes to intimacy. But for Keith, love wasn't something to hide. He sang about Nicole the way a man does when he loves without fear of being misunderstood. When Gemini was released, audiences were delighted by its heat and honesty, while American media, from E! News to Rolling Stone and People, called it Keith Urban's most sensual love song yet. It spread fast, and many said they had never seen Keith so open, so unfiltered. But for Nicole, it stirred something more complicated. Affection mixed with unease. When asked about it, she only smiled. "I don't censor him. I just get a little embarrassed." A short answer, yet one that revealed the difference between their worlds. Nicole, ever discreet and graceful, was unaccustomed to exposing private emotions to the public. Keith, the instinctive country songwriter, loved by revealing everything, even the things most people would hide. That's why Gemini wasn't just a love song. It was the meeting of two ways of loving, one restrained, one exposed. And in that moment when Nicole blushed as she heard herself sung about before millions, the audience saw something deeper. A woman so deeply loved that she had nowhere left to hide from that love. On the surface, the story still shimmered, full of laughter and admiration. But beneath it, there was a subtle shift. From the fighter's vow of protection to Gemini's portrait of desire, the music had moved from promise to observation. And later that same year came Parallel Line, a song that felt like a whisper. No longer declaring, "I won't let you fall," Keith now pleaded gently, "We don't need to fall from grace. Put down the weapons you fight with." Words like weapons, grace, and fall were no coincidence. They hinted at a quiet exhaustion only the two of them could understand. The arrangement was warm, his voice soft, yet the heart of the song was a plea to stop fighting, to lay down arms, to be kind to each other again. From this point on, the pulse of his music changed tone, less like vows and more like confessions. By 2020, Change Your Mind invited listeners into the quiet room of a conversation. "I'd give anything to change your mind." The line hung in the air like an empty chair at the end of the dinner table. No more steady call and response. Just one lone voice, negotiating with silence. The melody didn't cry out, but the strings trembled with a patient kind of sorrow, the kind of sadness adults learn to choose after weathering too many storms. By 2022, Brown Eyes Baby turned toward a woman with no name. She had brown eyes, her own story, and a smile that needed to be given back. Keith later said in an interview, "Not every song I write is about Nicole. Sometimes it's just about people, about emotions I see around me." The line sounded simple, but it marked a shift. The you that once stood vividly clear had now dissolved into everyone, a quiet movement from the personal to the universal, from love letters to life notes. If we trace the emotional curve, it looks like this. 2016, The Fighter, a musical vow, a dialogue between two lovers. 2018, Gemini, a portrait of the beloved, passionate, yet viewed from a slight distance. 2018, Parallel Line, a plea to lay down arms, the first signal of fatigue. 2020, Change Your Mind, a soft monologue, hoping to change her mind, knowing it's futile. 2022, Brown Eyes, Baby, a story about someone else, half a step farther away. All of it unfolded quietly, delicate, dignified, without noise. But that was the sound of a silent fracture. Not the loud kind of Hollywood breakup, no tears, no statements. Just two people slowly realizing they no longer heard the same melody. And like every artist, Keith felt it long before anyone else did. The crack didn't arrive in a thunderstorm. It changed like the seasons, slowly, inevitably, irreversibly. When words could no longer hold it, he did the only thing he knew how. He wrote songs. By 2024, Keith finally said aloud what his music had been whispering for years. Not every song I write is about Nicole. Sometimes it's just about people, about emotions around me. It wasn't denial, it was honesty. Honesty that songs could no longer preserve a person. Only the fragments that remained. A glance, a breath, a beautiful sigh. And so, from 2018 to 2023, Keith Urban's music became a barometer of marriage, the needle gently dipping into gray weather. No storms, only drizzle. The kind that soaks you before you even notice. The couple still smiled on red carpets, still held hands before the cameras. But in the songs, the distance had already begun to speak, long before the truth finally came to light. In July 2025, the High and Alive tour stopped in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the first show since news of the divorce broke. No explanations, no press conferences, no official statements, only music. And within that music, Keith Urban quietly changed a single familiar line. When the opening chords of The Fighter rang out, the crowd erupted, as if muscle memory had brought them back to a happier time. But when the chorus came, he didn't sing. "Baby, I'll be your fighter." Instead, he sang, "Maggie, I'll be your guitar player." One word changed, and for a few seconds, the world seemed to stop. Maggie, the dog Nicole and Keith once adopted together, the name he often mentioned during lonely tour nights when his family wasn't around. The audience gasped. The media called it the most heartbreaking remix of Keith Urban's career. But he said nothing. No interviews, no reactions. He just kept singing. At the Hershey show, during Heart Like a Hometown, the LED screen behind him lit up with images of Nicole Kidman smiling at their 2006 wedding, interspersed with photos of their daughters, Sunday and Faith. The stage lights dimmed. Keith bowed deeply, then drifted into a long, wordless instrumental. No one knew if it was planned or spontaneous, but for that brief moment, the stadium fell silent. To outsiders, it was a simple tribute. But to anyone who had lived through a long love story, they understood. This was how a man says goodbye without ever using the word goodbye. A member of the tour crew told people, "He's sad, but not regretful." He said every song now isn't a vow anymore. It's a thank you. From Once in a Lifetime to The Fighter, then Change Your Mind, each song had once been a chapter of their marriage. And now those same songs still echo. Only the person he sang to is no longer sitting in the front row. On stage, Keith still smiled. But if you listened closely, his voice had changed. Deeper, rougher, sometimes breaking mid-line. It was no longer the voice of a man fighting to hold on to love, but of a man learning how to live after losing it. In his music, he still sang of home. But home now meant 2 daughters, an empty Nashville studio, a guitar scarred with tour stickers, and the memory of the woman who once pulled him from the edge. For the audience, it was just another concert. But for Keith, it was a final farewell. A ceremony of sound, where music carried what words could not. That even when love has gone, gratitude remains. After nearly 2 decades together, when every paper had been signed and sealed, both chose to leave quietly. No accusations, no tell-all interviews. Just 2 people who had once walked side by side, now moving parallel in opposite directions. Nicole Kidman returned to film. She appeared at AmFAR Dallas 2025, wearing a minimalist white gown, her smile still gentle, though her eyes no longer carried the same unguarded innocence. No one asked, and she didn't offer answers. When the press mentioned Keith's name, she simply said, "I will always respect what we had, and I wish him happiness." A few light words, soft as a breeze closing the longest chapter of her life. Keith Urban, meanwhile, found refuge on stage. He didn't cancel the tour, didn't take a break. Instead, each night of the High and Alive tour became a journey through pain, one song at a time. In Nashville, during a late September show, he paused mid-song, looked at the audience, and spoke slowly. "Thank you for the years that taught me to love deeply, hurt deeply, and sing honestly." Then the lights dimmed, and the first chords of Without You began, the song he'd written for Nicole in 2011, when they had just welcomed their first daughter. What was once a love song of gratitude now sounded like a farewell. "Everything I have means nothing without you." His voice was rough, low, and trembling, as if he were forcing each word through a knot in his throat. Every "without you" cut through the air, painful, beautiful, and so real that the entire arena fell silent. To the audience, it was a moment of artistry. To him, perhaps it was the first time he'd sung that song with no one waiting backstage. Show after show, his tone grew calmer, no longer trembling, but settling, as if he were slowly learning to make peace with emptiness. Nicole, meanwhile, continued her quiet grace on red carpets, her eyes calm, the look of someone who had chosen forgiveness over bitterness. She spoke no words about the past, made no remarks about him. Yet every time Keith sang, her presence seemed to linger still, in every note, every pause, every breath. Because perhaps the hardest thing isn't writing songs about love. It's singing them again once that love is gone. According to People, those close to Nicole Kidman revealed that when the marriage officially ended, she was shocked and devastated. She had truly believed that after everything they had survived together, addiction, scandal, and the long stretches of career distance, their love was strong enough to save them. She fought for the relationship until the very last moment, one source said. But unlike her heartbreak with Tom Cruise more than 2 decades ago, the Nicole Kidman of today did not collapse. After years of storms, she had learned one truth: life promises nothing permanent. In her 50s, Nicole was seasoned enough to understand that love doesn't have to survive inside marriage, and that sometimes happiness lies not in holding on, but in letting go. In an old interview, she once said, "To love someone is to bring them peace, whether or not you continue walking together." After the divorce, Nicole stayed in Nashville with her 2 daughters, keeping her distance from the spotlight and devoting most of her time to family. Her sister, Antonia Kidman, flew from Australia to be by her side, while Nicole maintained complete silence. No interviews, no denials, no confirmations. What stood out, though, was this. Even though she no longer mentioned Keith, she still let his music play in the house. A close friend shared that sometimes when her daughters played The Fighter or Thank You, Nicole would smile softly and say, "Your dad wrote this song for me. No resentment, no regret. Just a beautiful memory preserved through sound." Perhaps that calmness is the mark of a woman who has truly grown after heartbreak. No longer angry, no longer searching for reasons, only a heart steady enough to accept that love doesn't always mean keeping. Nicole Kidman chose to hold on to the most beautiful part of that marriage, not for the media, but for her 2 daughters, and for the melodies once written just for her. In contrast to Nicole's silence, Keith Urban chose to keep moving, as if the stage were the only place left where he could still breathe. Right after the divorce, he didn't retreat from the spotlight. He threw himself into a global tour, singing before tens of thousands of fans each night. But amid the cheers and the blazing lights, something had changed. Keith's music grew quieter, slower, with fewer high notes and more pauses. And within those pauses, it felt like something unsaid lingered. During a show in Denver, he looked up and smiled before the encore, saying softly, "Thank you for the years that taught me to love deeply, hurt deeply, and sing honestly." A simple sentence, but the audience understood. It was both gratitude and goodbye. Not just to the fans, but to the woman who had been the center of every song he ever wrote. In the shows that followed, he began to subtly change a few old lyrics, as if rewriting his life story right there on stage. A member of the tour crew told people, "He's sad, but he doesn't regret it. They both gave it everything." Keith didn't deny, didn't hide. He simply kept singing, because that was the only language he knew for the things that couldn't be said. No statements, no explanations, no blame, only music, quietly narrating the rest of a love story. And in those concerts, people heard a different Keith Urban. His voice raspier, his tempo slower, but every note soaked in a raw, exhausting honesty. It was as if, each time he picked up his guitar, he was whispering to himself, "She's gone, but the music and the love are still here." People can part ways, but songs do not. Because music, once written from the heart, outlives any marriage contract. Between light and shadow, between loss and what remains, the love of Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman didn't end in scandal. It ended in melody. And that melody is the one thing no signature can erase. Keith once said, "I don't write songs to hold on to someone. I write to remember what was beautiful." And over nearly 2 decades, that love transformed into a legacy of music, where each song became a fragment of 2 lives intertwined, loved, and quietly let go. According to People in Taste of Country, there are 9 songs Keith Urban himself confirmed were inspired directly by Nicole Kidman. Once in a lifetime, a promise for a new beginning. Got it right. This time, the celebration, the belief that he finally got it right. Thank You, a tribute to the wife who saved him from addiction. Without You, a family song declaring that everything means nothing without her. The Fighter, a vow in melody, I'll be the one to protect you. Gemini, a passionate, daring portrait of desire. Parallel Line, a plea to stop fighting. Change Your Mind, a quiet monologue of regret. Brown Eyes Baby, a reflection of absence where love turns into memory. 9 songs, 9 fragments of a marriage. Each melody a diary entry, each lyric a confession that can never be erased. The love has ended on paper, but it still lives. In every concert night, in every radio replay, in every hum from listeners who remember what they once wrote for each other, and perhaps that is the final meaning of true love. Not to last forever, but to leave behind something that softens the world whenever their names are spoken. Because Keith Urban's music, born from pain, now stands as proof that some love stories, even in ending, remain beautiful enough to be retold. Forever. Did you know? Before everything fell apart, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were once one of Hollywood's most beautiful love stories, a seemingly impossible romance between an actress who had known heartbreak and a country singer carrying his own scars. They met on January 15, 2005, at the G'day USA Gala in Los Angeles, an ordinary evening that ended up changing both of their lives. Nicole was then a global star who had endured deep losses, while Keith was a musician at the height of fame, but battling instability. They exchanged numbers, but Keith didn't call for 4 months. "I was crazy about him, but he wasn't interested in me," Nicole told Ellen DeGeneres. "He didn't call me for 4 months." Then, on June 20th, 2005, Keith appeared at her New York doorstep at 5 a.m., holding a bouquet of white gardenias, Nicole's favorite flowers. "That's when I knew. He was the one," she recalled to People. Their love moved quickly. They got engaged in May 2006 and married just a month later, on June 25, 2006, in a candlelit ceremony in Sydney, where Keith serenaded her with "Making Memories of Us." Each guest left with a keepsake engraved. A moment in time. June 25th, 2006. Nicole and Keith. But, as with every fairy tale, trials soon followed. Just 4 months after the wedding, Nicole staged an intervention to help Keith enter rehab, fearing he might destroy himself. He went, and when he came out, she was still there, waiting. In 2007, they moved to Nashville, far from Hollywood's glare, seeking peace and normalcy. That love soon took shape in music. From Once in a Lifetime, Got It Right. This time, Thank You, the Fighter, to Gemini. Every song was a chapter written for Nicole. Nicole once said, "I love him because he doesn't pretend. He's himself with all his wounds." They welcomed 2 daughters, Sunday Rose, 2008, and Faith Margaret, 2010, via surrogacy. Keith once flew 20 hours just to be there for Nicole's first ultrasound, a testament to how much he loved her. Over 19 years, they weathered rehab, the loss of parents, fame, and the ever-shifting tides of celebrity life. In 2014, when Nicole's father passed away, Keith halted his tour, rushed home to Australia, and sang "Amazing Grace" at the funeral, a moment that deeply moved the public. Their love was always expressed through small, sincere gestures, a kiss every morning, a car duet of The Fighter, or Keith publicly calling Nicole the inspiration of my life. In 2020, they sang together in a Christmas video. In 2023, Keith projected scenes from their wedding on a Las Vegas stage, a reminder that every melody begins with love. In 2024, before her 50th career anniversary, Nicole told people, "I'm so lucky to have Keith, the great love of my life." They had walked hand in hand through everything. And perhaps that's why their divorce shocked the world so deeply, because they had once lived so beautifully. No spectacle, no pretense. Just a sincere love between 2 wounded souls who found each other and held on for nearly 2 decades. And maybe, as Nicole once said herself, love doesn't have to last forever to be eternal. Have you ever listened to a song again and felt your heart ache just like the first time? When a familiar melody returns, every old memory seems to come alive, not because of the music itself, but because of the person behind it. For Keith Urban, music was never just a career. It was how he loved, how he forgave, and how he said goodbye. Each time he sings "The Fighter," "Without You," or "Change Your Mind," a piece of his heart is still there, never fully closed. And what about you? Do you believe that somewhere among thousands of fans, when Keith performs those songs, he's still singing to one person? Do you believe Keith Urban still loves Nicole Kidman? And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to continue exploring love stories where music and the heart have never truly learned how to say goodbye.